You're listening to the world's #1 football podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Ben Hansen, Matt Hartman, and Ryan Matthews.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Pigskin Project YouTube channel. I am Matt Hartman, and I just talked about 40 minutes of Week 1 Sunday action. Didn't talk about the Thursday or the Friday games, but I talked about every game in Week 1. This is the intro to that. Just me, full yap sesh. Sometimes I hope to get Ben or Ryan on one of these shows throughout the season when some big games happen. I thought this was an awesome, incredible weekend, and there were some things I wanted to talk about. It's still Week 1, so I didn't want to plant my flag on anything specifically, but for the most part, like, we had to talk Ravens-Bills. That was obviously the headliner. That was a fun game, but these recap shows are going to be coming every Monday morning. Hope you enjoy. And then if you want to see our preview picks, if you want to see everything that we do going into a week, live Wednesday, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central, we're talking NFL, we're talking college football, we're talking everything football there. So if you want to see that, that'd be much, much appreciated. And then if you're a Saints fan, go check out in the description. Check out my Saints blog. Check out my Saints articles that I write. I'm about to start writing about the quarterback performance from Spencer Rattler in Week 1, so you won't want to miss that. That'd be much appreciated to me if you're a Saints fan, and if you're just want to learn about the Saints, that'd be awesome for me. But all the links in the description. Let's get you into my yap sesh of NFL Week 1. So let's get into Week 1 of the NFL, and obviously we have to start with the big ticket item. Ravens-Bills. Bills 41, Ravens 40. This was sniffing Ravens domination in every sense of the way. 160 first half rushing yards for the Ravens. There is a stat at halftime that Derrick Henry had 100-plus rushing yards. I think he had 101 rushing yards in the second quarter. That's the sixth time in his career he's had 100-plus rushing yards in a quarter. Not a half, a quarter. Truly remarkable stuff was going on, but to kill Buffalo, you have to slay Josh Allen, and they couldn't. They couldn't. Through thick and thin of this game, it felt like Baltimore, their front four specifically, was just not built for the challenge of dealing with Josh Allen through the final frame, more so than anything else to me. I think those guys, like Collinsworth made a little mention of it on the broadcast, talking about like being out of shape, and I think that was real for a few of those guys, especially those interior guys, Travis Jones and Nnamdi Madubuike. Those are things that are real, that come up early in these games, and they just couldn't get home and slam the door when they needed to, especially in those final two drives, because I know they had a sack a little like midway through on a little pressure package. But overall, this is just a one-of-a-kind quarterback duel that we got. I think there was like Lamar didn't have one of those games like he does against Cincinnati, especially last year in Cincinnati, but he had some of those moments, especially that 3rd and 10 specifically, where he's just able to evade, and drift off the pocket, and somehow he's able to find a scramble lane, and he just goes. I miss this Baltimore Ravens team being able to watch this run game go to work. And then Derrick Henry fumbled. And here's a fun stat. Derrick Henry, going into tonight, had 0 fumbles when leading in the fourth quarter. He now has 1. And then Buffalo answers back, scores another 7. And I remember just like Collinsworth playing it up on the broadcast, like, well, this is it. Make the moment as big as possible. This is it. This is where your off-season play that you've been practicing all month, all off-season, for this moment, and they run like a goal line fade to Keon Coleman, and Nate Wiggins just completely stands him up. And then it was 40 to 38, and there was 3 timeouts left. And that 4th and 3, I'll put my stamp on it. I've said it. I don't think there's a world you can take Lamar Jackson off the field. I know he was limping. I know he was cramping. You have 3 timeouts if you're Baltimore. They've done it before. They did it against Kansas City a few years ago. You need to kill. You cannot take Lamar Jackson off the field to me. That is my personal opinion. Just taking him off the field and punting there. If the score is a little bit different, if it's 40 to 37 and it's a 3-point game and a field goal ties it, maybe I think differently. But you are literally conceding the game to me at that point because a field goal wins the game. You are guaranteeing this is it. We are not touching the ball again in a game that matters because they're going to go for it on every 4th down. All they have to get is 30 yards to get in field goal range. And they punted, man. 4th and 3. I didn't like it. I don't like when you punt these monster quarterbacks. Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Burrow, Herbert. Throw them all in there. I want those guys to win the game. I want that game to decide on his sword. And if he airmails it and it's incomplete, well, I did the right thing. I think going for it is always the right thing in that spot because possession is 9/10 of the law in the NFL. And I didn't like it. Jair Alexander on the final possession gave up like 50 yards, 20 plus yards in yak. Incredibly poor from him. Let's get Chidobe Awuzie back there. Is unquashed, some are saying. And then even like the Bills going back to the 2-point conversion off that they were trying to do. They go for the 2 because they have the 12 men on the field. They don't get it. Was it a bad call? Was he forced out? Did he regain? Like, I don't care. They didn't score. And then it's 27-19. And then they go for it again. They do the right thing, and they go for it down by 9. They don't get it there. They don't get it. And it continuously is this, like, spiral for McDermott. And then he doesn't go for it when it goes to 40 to 31. He takes the field goal. Then they get the fumble, like Derrick Henry, as I mentioned. They don't go for 2. Or then they have to go for 2. I'm completely mixing up my entire words. But you get what I'm saying. You watch the football game. I don't know why I'm describing the football game, but just from that point on, it was just both sides. Both coaches felt like it was, I'm coaching to do the right thing, when in reality you need to put your life on the line. You need to put the game on the line in the hands of your quarterback, because each one of these quarterbacks was able to do that tonight to me, and they just didn't. They didn't, or at least John Harbaugh did not. McDermott kind of played his defense gave up 40 points, man. I don't know. Like, this is all on Josh Allen to me. This is all on Josh Allen and that offense specifically. That offense was incredible today. Zay Flowers was incredible today. Keon Coleman was incredible today. Derrick Henry, outside of one malfunction, was incredible today. Just like the playoff game where Lamar malfunctions twice and Von Miller has a crazy fumble return and Lamar has a dumb interception thrown in the first quarter. This is just a playoff game. These are the playoff games. These are the little moments that just swing games like this. And now, the Ravens are facing an uphill battle because the Steelers already won nothing and the Bengals are 1-0, things like that. But I don't think it's going to stop the Ravens. I think this is still the best, probably, it's unanimously probably the best team in football right now. Even if things like this happen, I think, people are probably going to call the Bills the best team in football, which I can't argue with, but in reality, it's probably still Baltimore, or maybe is it the game we'll talk about next? How about the Green Bay Packers? This is a team, the Green Bay Packers, obviously, they trade for Micah Parsons a few days ago, a week and a half ago, and they completely stomped Detroit. They didn't win by 14. They were up by 21 with a minute left. Isaac Sisla gets an overturned touchdown catch. Great for him. His first of his career. But this was one of those games that the Packers met the punch in a massive, massive way. They were more disruptive. They were finally able to win with 4 up front the entire game on these high leverage pass downs, and Micah Parsons can do that. When they brought him out as like this final boss on the first drive of the game, and he just goes right at Penny Sewell and forces like a throwaway from Goff, or an incomplete pass at least, and they get the ball back, it was one of, like, I can't imagine how it felt to be in Lambeau as a Packers fan right there, in that moment specifically. Because, like, he's not just, like, really good. That's the thing that it completely just, it just doesn't dawn on me that this player is traded, because he's not just like, oh, he's ascending. Like, it's not like you traded for Edgerrin Cooper. You traded for the odds leading defensive player of the year candidate. That immediately catapults any football team he is on. And he did today. He was a monster in edge set game. He was a monster rushing the passer. He just went right at Penny Sewell all game long, man. And it was just so noticeable. And I'll cut into the lines, like the state of their offensive line, because like Lucas Van Ness was someone that I was high on in the draft. I'm kind of low on as a player in the NFL right now, but like they lined him up over the left guard a few times, and he just completely bulldozed him. Devontae Wyatt got a sack home, and that's what Micah Parsons can add to you. Micah Parsons just frees up all these guys to have their own opportunities at getting to the passer. And they did it all day long. Jared Goff was like 31 for 39 for 225 yards. I don't know how that's possible. They could not move the ball. They could not run the ball. David Montgomery was 11 carries for 25 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs was 9 carries for 19 yards. And Jahmyr Gibbs had a 14-yard run. So you just think about that. 8 carries for 5 yards. Just a decimation on one side of the ball. And then you go to the Packers side of the ball as an offense. Jordan Love is only forced to throw the ball 22 times. Doesn't turn the ball over. Doesn't get sacked. Creates explosives. They had a drive there where it was an explosive to, it was like a 50-yard game to Dobbs, and then the next play was this wheel route to Jaden Reed. I think it was to put them up 17-3. And then the Lions' drive out of that was an interception in the red zone. Like, it just didn't feel close. It didn't feel close for a game that the Lions were the team that won 15 games last year, and the Packers were the team that got eliminated in the first round and had 10 points on the board. It just did not feel like that. It's a new season. It's a new season, and things change. But man, did the Lions just feel outmatched. And if they can't run the ball with the success that they've had the last few years, I think it's just going to be so hard for John Morton, I believe that's his name, to just get a feel for this passing offense. And listen, they don't have to face the Packers every week, okay? They're going to get, like, they face the Bears next week, so, I mean, that's still a game you got to wake up for. But it's the NFL. You got to wake up for everybody, but you know what I'm saying? Like, they're not going to have to face this fearsome foursome every single week, but all this did was just put the feather in the cap. It's like, yeah, I think the Packers are one of those teams. They're on the Super Bowl tier. I believe their offense was going to get to a place where I said on this podcast they're going to be the number one offense. Said it with, not entirely conviction, but we need bold takes, and it was one of my bold takes. But if that offense gets to a place where it doesn't even have to be one, if it's seventh and this defense is this good, they're going to win a lot of games. But let's get into... let's stay with the late slate. Let's stay with Niners Seahawks. I'm going. Nick Bosa slams the door shut here. He had a sack force fumble inside the 10. The Seahawks were driving. It was a weird Seahawks game. Again, they couldn't run the ball. Again, they couldn't run the ball like they couldn't run the ball last year. So that didn't change. I believe they didn't have a player catch more than 2 balls outside of. Oh, sorry, Kenneth Walker caught the ball 3 times, but JSN had 9 catches for 124 yards. The rest of the team combined for 26 receiving yards. Incredible. Charbonnet was the leading rusher. He had more carries and more yards than Kenneth Walker. That was fascinating to me because I've always fancied myself as a Kenneth Walker believer just because of how good he was as a rookie and how explosive he was. But seems they've shifted to Charbonnet, or just a overall split backfield. But talking about the Niners, going back to the Niners, this is a game that the Niners just did not win a year ago. They lose Kittle to injury for the game in the first half. He scores a touchdown, but they lose him for the game. Moody misses chip shot, down by 3. Then they get back inside the red zone. They then have to settle for a field goal again. This time Jake Moody is blocked. He gets blocked. Purdy turns the ball over twice. And they ended up having just enough, not just because of Jake Tonjes, but because McCaffrey was out there, man. What McCaffrey does for this offense, being the engine that he is, 22 carries for 69 yards, not a good stat line from rushing the ball, but he had 9 catches for 73 yards. He just opens the field so much in what Shanahan wants to do that Shanahan is now reliant on McCaffrey, which is not a great thing, where in the past he was not reliant on the running back. But when you change so much and Ayuk is not out there and Kittle is not out there and Debo's traded away, you have to make these things happen. You have to revolve around someone along your offense. And they got selective explosives to Pearsall. Jawan Jennings was a pretty much non-factor. And CMC just carried him to the finish line, man. He really did. For the Seahawks, there's going to be evolution with this offense. I'm banking on it. It's the first, iteration of this. There's so much new on this offense that it's going to take a time. It's going to take a minute to me. It's why I didn't I think the defense is really good. I do. But the overall construct of everything, I'm a little nervous about. Long term, maybe. But that's all for Niners, Seahawks. Let's hit 2 of the early games. Which one should I do first? I'm gonna do Steelers, Jets. Steelers, Jets. My number 1 takeaway was not Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry, Steelers fans. It was Justin Fields. Justin Fields being so specific as a quarterback and being this one read and run quarterback. I thought they did some excellent stuff with him. They had some selective downfield shots to Garrett Wilson. He peppered a lot of Garrett Wilson in this game, by the way, that I was pretty interested by. He was on target a lot of it. He was not specifically on time, which he's just not going to be. It's just not going to happen. But for the most part, when Justin Fields only has to attempt 22 passes and they can run the ball almost 40 times, Breece Hall can be as effective as he was. And you can sprinkle in the run game of Fields, which I think is that is his superpower in 2025, is being able to be this dynamic athlete running the football and make you multiple in the run game. He was really, really good. Only 1 sack in this game. And again, the receiving was pretty. I mean, it's Garrett Wilson and everybody else going into the season, so to see the stat line kind of end up that way was interesting. But then we get to the Pittsburgh. It was just the Pittsburgh way. Even if they have to score 34 points and it's not able to be 20-17, they just find ways to win, man. They force a fumble on the kickoff, trailing in the 4th quarter. They make a 60-yarder from Chris Boswell 60 yards. He's standing on the Jets logo at midfield. Kills it by like 10 yards, by the way. And then Jalen Ramsey as the flat defender on 4th and 3 destroys Garrett Wilson and stops him in his tracks. Could Justin Fields have run for it? Maybe, maybe not. Do I hate the decision when he lets go of the football? Not really. Do I think the throw could be better? Probably. But overall, I think that's what superstars do. They just close gaps. They seal games. And that's what Jalen Ramsey did. I don't know what the Steelers are going to be. Rodgers looked fine. That was like the best way I could say it. Like, he looked fine. He was able to move off the pocket a few times. But for the most part, it was a lot of like the simple Rodgers stuff. I don't want to get hit. I want the ball out. I'm going to dissect it pre-snap. This is like what he did. He dissected it pre-snap with New York, and he would find his routes. Okay, you're in this. You're doing this. I'm going to look here and then do this within 3 seconds because I'm not getting hit. I'm 40 years old. And I kind of saw that with the Steelers, but he was more willing to work in an Arthur Smith structure than with the Jets. So I think there is some give and take there. That it's like, Aaron, we're going to still lean into the stuff you like to do. Like, if you see DK one-on-one, you can check into a slant. That's fine. But we're still going to lean into some of the under-center play action stuff that I like to do. Because guess what? You had success with it with Matt LaFleur for a few years there. You know how you won 2 MVPs in your late 30s? So I think there's going to be a give and take with this offense. My only thing is like secondary pass catchers. And that's been a thing for everybody, is like outside of DK Metcalf, who are going to be the guys that make plays when required. Like in this game, you get a Calvin Austin massive touchdown. You get a Ben Skoranek 22-yard touchdown. Jonnu Smith caught the ball 5 times. You were able to mix him in, which they were doing kind of similar to what Miami does, where everything is close to the line of scrimmage, get him out in space. But we're going to find out. I think we're going to find out. The only thing we found out was Caleb Johnson is not close to cracking this rotation. That was interesting to me. I think Caleb Johnson is awesome, and he's nowhere near the rotation. He had 1 carry for -2 yards. Kenny Gainwell got much more run than him, so that was fascinating to me. But let's get into the last 12 o'clock game that I want to talk about before we kind of rapid fire. But the Bucs and Falcons. The Bucs and Falcons was, it was a slop fest, man. In the best of ways for Tampa Bay. It was just, like, they were not able to just move the ball consistently. Baker was 17 for 32. Didn't move the ball incredibly well. They couldn't run the ball. Baker was had their longest rush of the day and was their leading rusher. And, oh, by the way, he was the leading rusher across the entire game. He had more rushing yards than Bijan and Algier on the other side. But just finding enough. It's just like these are what some of these teams do. And you're just able to find enough. Who was it? I can't remember the name, but they had a massive punt return. Special teams was the difference in this game. They have that massive punt return. Both teams, I believe, missed a field goal. McLaughlin misses the extra point after the touchdown to go up 4, so it keeps the door open. And then, like, Atlanta has that weird drive along the goal line where, like, Michael Penix gets the first down, then they have to review it. You flip over to the Steelers game, they flip back, and now they have another shot. And then he stretches and leaps and scores a touchdown. That was fun. It was just a fun slop fest in the best of ways. It was the NFC South at its core for me, being a Saints fan. I know all about these slop fests. But for the most part, like, it was just Tampa found enough. And I don't want to overreact to week 1, but like Mecca Igbukka might be awesome, dude. He might be tremendous, but For the Falcons side, they scored that touchdown to Bijan on that 50-yard scamper that he has where he's lined up out wide. They had a ton of Penix drop back stuff. I wonder how, with all the injuries that they've had, not all of them, but like Caleb McGarry, they've lost Dahlman, who was a better center than Newsel, who they have in right now, but Newsel is still passable. It's just a lot of changes. And also mentioning for the Buccaneers, there's a lot of changes along the offensive line for them, too. Tristan Wirfs doesn't play. They kick out their center, Graham Barton, to left tackle. They move over Ben Bredesen, their left guard, to center. Like, they made massive, massive moves, too. So I don't want to just, pass it over for Tampa. But for the Falcons, they could not run the ball. 2 yards per carry for Algier and Bijan combined. 22 carries for 48 yards. It's just not going to cut it. And neither one of them had an explosive run, which is a 10-plus yard run. Bijan was incredible in the pass game, though. As he can be. It was very, it's weird for Penix because I think that, again, I was lower on him in the draft, but all that doesn't matter now. He's the starting quarterback of a franchise. The thing with him is, this is his strength, is being in pure dropback, being in the gun, being able to decipher everything. But it's just so hard to get on board because he throws the ball a million miles per hour. He can throw the fade ball really, really well. And he puts touch on the fade ball really, really well. But the accuracy on throwing in the middle of the field, I still think it can get better, and it's only his 4th game. So again, this is where I'm the overreaction. I want to say things, but I can't. I need to see him play more football before I even assess anything yet. Truly, that's how I feel. But I want to say one thing about Penix. His sack avoidance is just incredible. His sack avoidance is so good. And if that guy is because he's at Mahomes' level in terms of pressure to sack rate. If he's that, with the arm that he has, he could be awesome. He really could. And I would eat my words. I would eat crow on what I had pre-draft. But lastly, another, it's early, but man, they could not close out. Another year of the Falcons pass rush, I feel like, is just going to be wasted. Again, James Pierce, Jalen Walker are very core elements, and they're rookies playing in their first games. Maybe they come along. Maybe they have games where they just figure it out. But for the most part, for those other guys that they've drafted over the past 2 drafts, it's still just we're all figuring it out, huh? Let's just throw 1 million draft picks at this. We'll figure it out. It's kind of I think, their mindset. But yeah, I don't know. But once I come back, I will talk about I kind of want to go rapid fire on everything else. I don't want to make this an hour-long thing, which, some of them, sometimes when I yap, it could be. Time out. Make sure you subscribe, comment, do all those things. It really, really helps us out. It helps push out the algorithm to so many different new fans of the channel. But I'll let you get back to the video. And we get back into it. So let's get back into it. I'm going to talk Cardinals Saints just for a quick minute. The Cardinals offense specifically, let's start with the Cardinals first. They just leaned into their skill guys, I think, to get them across the finish line against a fine team. Kyler was, again, fine. Got sacked a lot, 5 sacks in this game. Trey Benson had a 50-yard explosive run. Marv had a 45-yarder down the right sideline in which he beat Kool-Aid McKinstry. They leaned into the Trey McBride stuff where he's, swinging out as a screen player. And for the most part, outside of those guys, James Conner had a pretty pedestrian game. He caught a shovel pass from Kyler, but 12 carries, 39 yards. It felt like a good thing every time for the Saints when James Conner got the football. I'll say that. I think that's when things are going your way. Trey Benson definitely looked more explosive. And then we get to the Saints side of things, and it's just weird. Spencer Rattler ended up throwing the ball 46 times in this game. 23 of them alone were in the fourth quarter, in which they were either trailing by double digits or they were on a 2-minute drive to try and win the or tie/win the game. I assume they would have gone for two, but overall, this team just did not hit any splash plays. Just not nearly enough. Alvin Kamara had an 18-yard run, and Rattler had a nice scramble at the later parts of the game. Kendre Miller looked nice in space, which if you've been watching preseason Saints, like that's a real thing. But overall, like Olave didn't have a massive gain, and Shaheed didn't have his like 50-yard play that he can have, especially last year at this time. So I'm interested to see how they lean into the explosive element of this because this felt like the best Spencer Rattler had been to me throughout preseason. He felt really, really good today against a ones defense. This was the first time we had ever seen him against a ones defense outside of like a few like 2 or 3 drives against Denver and a drive and a half against the Chargers in week 1 of preseason. So to see him play that way was interesting. Juwan Johnson drops that play in the end zone. I man, wish they would have caught that. I would want to see a 2-point conversion to win the game from the Saints in week 1. But obviously, they did not have that happen. Overall, Will Johnson played a really good game. Will Johnson is the cornerback from Michigan who fell into the second round. He had an interception called back. He had a big hit on Olave. He was just around the football. He's a really, really good corner, and he fell because of injury concerns. If he's a really good corner for them, I wouldn't be surprised. But let's kind of speed through the rest of these. But all right, Giants, Commanders. Man, Russell Wilson is not fun to watch. I said this is like he's 36, 37. I don't know exactly. He plays like he's 26, man. Still running around behind the line of scrimmage, trying to make something happen, and it just resulted in sacks or throwaways way too much for me. The Commanders' run game was one of the best of the weekend before the Ravens game happened. Just a much more limited cupboard compared to the league. Bill Krosky-Merritt, obviously one of the fantasy darlings. He has a touchdown in this game, and he has a monster like 40-yard gain in this game later to kind of seal off the deal. And then the offseason additions of Tunsil and Debo, really, they showed their presence, and it just made it feel different in a good way. They leaned into Debo at times. They didn't need to exhaust all of Terry McLaurin like they did last year at times. And they still have that in the back pocket of like Terry can be a guy that can catch 8 balls for 97 yards, like things like that. So, but they were never in hard downs and distances, which is what their superpower was last year, and why their fourth down rate was so good is because they were never in a down that they could not handle specifically. So, Commanders get the W. Giants still searching for to figure it out on offense. Raiders and Patriots. The Raiders pick up a win. The Raiders are 1-0. Watch out. There's a lot of Geno and Drake May in this game. A lot of throwing the football. And we didn't know if we were going to get that early when it was storming in Foxborough, it felt like. But the Raiders offense is going to lean on Geno. He's pretty awesome. There was, I retweeted a tweet today from, I believe it was Shield Kapadia. The Raiders had nine passes of 20-plus yards with some yak in there. No other team had more than 5 before the Sunday Night Football game. That could have changed. But he really bailed them out of some spots. The run game is still a work in progress. It will have its moments with Genty, but today was not one of those moments. I think he was like 18 carries for 37 yards. Just forgettable day for Genty, but he got in the end zone. So, hey. That's pretty good. And then for the Patriots, there was a lot of Drake May dropbacks, 12 designed carries for Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson combined. I was interested in that. Josh McDaniels is going to put a lot on the second-year quarterback to figure it out. And he looked good at times and airmailed some other ones. They took a field goal late in this game, made the scoreboard look better, made it look like a 7-point game. But for the most part, The Raiders kind of pulled away in the second half and never looked back, so I'm interested to see how the Patriots respond to a pretty bad offensive second half if they answer that better next time. The Panthers-Jaguars, didn't see too much of this one, I'll be honest, so I don't want to put too much opinion on this game. But there's 2 total drives in the first quarter. They both ended with field goals. And both teams were just not explosive. I don't know if this is the Jaguars kind of coasting because they had the second quarter that they did. And the Panthers specifically don't have someone that explosive. Oh, wait, you drafted Xavier Legette. That's kind of his thing. I've been lower on the Panthers because I'm just low on the quarterback at this point. I don't believe the quarterback is going to take you to places that you want to go in 2025 at this point. But you got to figure it out, see if he can, figure it out. But time for these offenses and these quarterbacks to operate their offenses is the most valuable tool. So, again, the Jags and Panthers are teams. I want to check back in week 6 and see what you are more so than, week 1 in which we had a thunder delay. But the Jaguars pick up the win. Next, we get into the Dolphins and Colts. My God. Is this more about the Colts being good or the Dolphins being really bad? I think everybody's kind of going to lean into the really, really bad Dolphins because Tua was inaccurate. The entire team felt effortless. And the coach going to the press conference and saying the phrase, "Well, I did my best. I guess it wasn't enough." Pretty pathetic, man. Didn't like that. It felt like a toddler throwing his hands. Like, I guess I did enough. Like, I'm trying to stop my child from teething on the electrical wires, and you pull him away and put him on the couch, and then he crawls over and does it again. And you just say, "Well, I did my best." Womp womp. I don't know. Didn't like that. Didn't like I think the Mike McDaniel shtick, I'm calling it a shtick, is great when you're winning games. It's awful when you're losing games and it's cold outside. So we're gonna see. We're gonna see how this season goes. If this season gets away from them really fast, I think Stephen Ross is going to pull the plug, the Dolphins owner. And then the Colts getting a win on opening day for the first time in 12 years. Andrew Luck was the starting quarterback in his second season. Think about that. Pretty crazy. For Jim Irsay, who of course passed earlier this offseason, this is what their quarterback needed to do. This is what I think Steichen wants them to do. And why he could not trust Anthony Richardson and tried to make it work with Flacco last year is he just wants a quarterback to point and shoot and get these guys involved. Michael Pittman was great today. Tyler Warren in space was great today. Josh Downs was great today. Like, this receiving core, this weapons core, is one of the best in the league. They just don't have a guy to get them there. And so Daniel Jones, obviously, for 1 week, is the guy to get them there. So we're going to find out together, are the Colts really good or are the Dolphins this bad? Or is it week 1? Who knows? Maybe the Dolphins get a kick in the ass and figure it out. Then we get into Bengals and Browns. This is a game the Bengals, again, like I mentioned earlier with the Niners, the Bengals don't win. The Bengals were outgained by the Browns by double their amount. They had 11 first downs. The Browns had 22. Both teams couldn't run the ball efficiently. Joe Flacco had double the attempts that Joe Burrow did, and only like 5 more incompletions. Just a wild game, and the Bengals survived because of defense, because their defense was good enough to get them across the finish line. That is not something I thought I would say in week 1, but here we are. Also, what helped them get across the finish line was the kicker, Andre Smista, something like that. He missed the extra point to go up 3 after the touchdown, then missed a chip shot field goal to take the lead with with a minute and a half to go. And they ended up losing. So, womp womp Browns, but they cover the 5.5 if that matters to anybody. Then we get into the final 2 of the late slate, and then we can get out of here. The Titans and Broncos. Cam Ward, the game's still pretty fast for you, man. It'll get better. I don't want to speak too much on this Titans offense. We're going to see some stats tomorrow about their you're watching this on Monday. I wonder what the stats are for the drops on this team, because it felt like he was throwing gunslinger fastballs over the middle of the field and nobody could handle the football. Nobody could catch the football. They were open, could not catch the football. And then you just get into the Broncos defense. Vance Joseph was just so aggressive. They were dynamic. They were disruptive. They were along every level. Even the part where they were not last year along the spine with Hufanga. So again, like they added pieces to a team that was already really, really like a unit that was already really, really good. They're really healthy. They went up against a rookie quarterback. It is the perfect storm for this to happen. They held him out of the end zone. They held him, I think, under 100 yards passing. So, yeah, man, I think everything for the Broncos defense went up. The Broncos offense, the offense felt like they were just pacing to the finish line. Bo Nix had that interception right at a half that was pretty bad. He felt spooked by pressure, which was something that really was a thing last year. So I'm interested to see how a course of a season goes with him about that stuff. But for the most part, he did his job. He did it in a good way. He got to the finish line 1-0, I guess. But we're going to see tougher teams that they're going to face, and we're going to have more of an opinion on Bo Nix into the future. And then lastly, let's talk about Texans and Rams. Defense was obviously on showcase. The Rams offense really leaned into their superstars. Puka had over 10 catches, over 100 yards. Kyron Williams, I think, touched the ball 20 times. Stafford looked pretty decent. He looked pretty fine. I know Stafford's back has been a major talking point, as it should be, with the guy who's barely practiced. But again, 14 points is not going to win you a lot of games in the National Football League, but it did win you this one. And then you get into the Texans. I was moved by the Texans' run blocking. I thought they were moving the piles well. Nick Chubb was getting some lanes. But the combo of pass protection along this offensive line and Stroud's overall sack avoidance, it's just a bad recipe, man. It's a bad recipe that I'm not like fully bought into figuring it out. I think we all had our own feelings on this offensive line going into the season. To have 3 sacks for 37 yards, in which they kind of catapulted some drives here and there, and they didn't get in the end zone. Nico Collins caught the ball 3 times, which just doesn't feel right. I get the whole, like, you can't force what's not there, but scheme him up, especially in a season where you don't have Tank Dell. It would have been interesting to see him get the ball forced a little bit more, but I didn't think they ran the ball terribly. I didn't think, like, Stroud's overall scrambling stuff is good, but his behind the line of scrimmage, he will dance and dance trying to make something happen. And it's like, you're not Lamar, man. You got to live for another day. I don't know, but overall, the Rams get the W. Again, this is just like the week 1 jittery of it all. I don't want to sit here and come out on a take and say, I think the Texans are really bad. I don't think they're going to figure out the offensive line. Maybe they do. But for the most part, for week 1, didn't think they did. But, yeah, I mean, that's it for the week 1 recap show. So, hope you enjoyed. Hopefully you enjoyed that video. We really appreciate you clicking on this video. Make sure to like and subscribe. That always helps us out. And remember, check out our links in the description. And Wednesdays, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central Time, live over here, talking ball, interacting with the chat, having some fun. So you wouldn't want to miss that. But that's all for me. And until next time, roll that outro.